It's Brainwash with Dr. Tom and Guitar Picks with Eric Perrotti.
Eric Perrotti, 20 songs you've selected that have influenced you as a musician and guitarist. What do you have to say about them in general to start out with?
Yeah, a couple of nights ago when you called me, and it's only been a couple of nights that I had to work on this, and it really says a lot to me that you would say as a musician and guitarist, because originally you said 20 songs that most influence you as a guitarist. But I've always considered myself a musician first. But a musician plays the guitar. That's my main instrument. So these songs, how did I categorize them? I would ask myself, do I go for songs? Do I go for songs that are guitar-oriented? Do I go for the composers? Do I go for the artists? A lot of times, all of those categories fall in the same place. So, for example, the first song on my list here, which the list goes in no particular order, pretty much as I could spit them out to myself. And if I waited another 2 days, it could be almost an entirely different 20-song list, and I could have gone 20 songs in each genre, classical, blues, rock, whatever. So I had to include as many differences that I felt. So the first song, While My Guitar Gently Weeps by George Harrison, for example, performed by the Beatles. All of that is influential. The song, the composer, and the performers. You know, for example, maybe the song that I have here a little later on the list, Blue Skies by Irving Berlin, performed by Les Paul. I think it's the fact that Les Paul played that particular recording that had influenced me to actually seek it out more so as a song and do an arrangement on, yes, the ukulele. But if that gives you some insight as to how I came up with this list or what it meant to me to follow through with that question, songs that influenced me as a musician / guitarist.
I guess as far as more specifically about the first one on the list, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, what about it?
Yeah, that's a good question because I covered a few categories with that selection. One is, it's really not my favorite Beatles song. I think it's a great song, though, as songs go, because it was actually written in the 50s when George Harrison was probably 15, 14 maybe, years old. And to look at it from a lyrical perspective, when everybody was singing things like, biddy bop, he's saying stuff like, I look at the world and I notice it's turning while my guitar gently weeps. And he's only a kid when he's writing this. And the chord progression is something like... when everybody else is doing nothing wrong. I love this. And he loved it too, but that to me is very important about that song. And aside from the fact that it was the Beatles and a George Harrison composition, Eric Clapton played the lead solo on it, which is, again, I didn't put any Clapton songs on here, but I feel as though I did include him because he was probably my first guitar influence, just because I understood this guy's good, It was, and yet he's not my favorite anymore, but he was the first person I can remember calling a favorite. So he's on that song, so there you go. I really like the verse the most, and I don't really know it anymore, but I can kind of give you an idea of what I was doing right there. I look at the world and I notice it's turning while my guitar gently weeps. I think that's real interesting to come out of the late 1950s. So I like the solo is not even the most important aspect to me of that song. I really like the verse. I like it lyrically. I like what it does chordally. The bass notes dropping like that in a minor dark key. And I think in an odd way he was trying to be philosophical, and maybe he got that point across.
It's Brainwash with Dr. Tom and Guitar Picks with Eric Perrotti. The Beatles, Blackbird.
I think that one I chose more so because it's a guitar song, and as a guitarist, that's what I saw in that song.
So you're changing guitars here for the listener.
Yeah, steel string guitar.
And we'll talk about guitars later, hopefully. But what can you say about the first guitar you performed with?
That was a nylon string classical guitar that I just bought a couple of weeks ago because it was real cheap and really neat, made by the Hofner Guitar Company, which actually is the known for their Beatle bass, the one that Paul McCartney played, the violin-shaped bass. They were always cheap in all manner of the word, cheap, inexpensive, but this was about $40 and I couldn't resist it. And but I like it a lot, actually. And the classical's got a softer tone that almost sounds sometimes more like a piano with a shorter sustain in the notes. That is to say, when you hit a note, it dies out quicker than a steel string note, which has a sharper, literally steel-sounding attack. Mm-hmm. The strings on the classical are 3 nylons and 3 silk and steel. But Blackbird was played on a steel string guitar. I like the fact that in Blackbird, there's this pedal of this string that if you pay attention to it, you'll hear it in every chord of the song and it'll drive you crazy. But when you stop and think, there are a ton of chords that revolve around that one G note. It's like Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Whatever he sings there. Take these broken wings wings and learn to fly. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to arrive. Goes to a bridge like. The abridged version, but if you really listen hard, you'll hear that G note through every chord, and I'm amazed by that, especially in the bridge where you go into B flat chords and F chords where you were in the key of G, sort of. And I think what amazes me about that is it's pretty much one guitar part through the whole song. There are occasions when it's overdubbed, that is to say they recorded it twice, but it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. And the only other instrument aside from a human voice you hear in that song is a metronome. That's actually just clicking out the rhythm, and it's turned on and off on occasion. But
wow.
I think it's turned on and off. Either that or they just mixed it out on occasions. Mm-hmm. But that song impresses me that it holds its own very well on one guitar.
It's Brainwashed with Dr. Tom and Guitar Picks with Eric Perrotti. Chuck Berry, Johnny B. Goode.
I felt like, again, that Chuck Berry was one of the people that I took notice of as a youngster, even before I played the guitar. And it was one of the songs that Johnny B. Goode in particular that encouraged me to want to play the guitar. And when I learned that opening riff, which a lot of people do in the key of A, he did it a half step higher in reality in the key of B flat. Here it is in A. Here's B flat. Doesn't that really sound a lot more like it? But anyway, when I learned that riff, I remember going that far with it one evening. I'd been playing guitar all night in my house, and we had relatives over, and nobody was paying any attention to me at all. I hit that, and they all turned around and said, "That kid can really play." It's not a difficult riff, but I think it was one of the first identifying riffs of guitar. Riff meaning a small group of notes, again like a hook. That riff, I think, was so identifying to the world of guitar, and it ushered in rock guitar, I believe, in the mid-1950s, when rock was a brand new thing. I think we tend to believe it was created in 1954 with Bill Haley's Rock Around the Clock, which could have easily been on this list. But Chuck Berry, being, I think, the first notable guitar player to make this the thing that would become what it has become, that evil heavy metal instrument. But that riff, to me, was, yeah. And I worked hard on that riff. Then it goes into over a rhythm that's, and it does the, we're down in Louisiana, close to New Orleans. We're back on the woods among the evergreens. They still love Cabernet of Wood. We're in the country boy named Johnny B. Goode. He never ever learned to read or write so well, but he could play a guitar like a ring in a bell. Go, go! Go, Johnny, go! Then you get the gist of it. Everybody's heard that. But why that riff? I mean, if you play it here, it's Roll Over Beethoven. He used that because he made a lot of money on it. I think I'll do it again. Make another million.
No one will notice.
Well, I guess they didn't. I think back in those days, though, rock music and the progression of it to me is really interesting to think that's what was going on in the 50s. And getting back to While My Guitar Gently Weeps, that's what was going on in the 50s. Chuck Berry. And here comes this kid in England writing a song like that, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, when he actually loved things like Chuck Berry. They covered one or two Chuck Berry songs the Beatles did. But I think that that song to me is important to show the evolution of rock music as well, because I include a couple of other rock songs, believe it or not, a couple other rock songs on this list. Mm-hmm. All right.